Hello and happy Friday. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome back to the channel. This is Fridays with Brandon, and today is episode number 69 of Fluke Fridays. And what we're going to go over today, I'm holding up these power quality tools because what we're going to go over today, we're going to talk a little bit about the tools, but we're going to talk more about something inside that sometimes confuses customers and is not always the most easy thing to understand. So I'm going to jump into that, and hopefully you guys will benefit from it. What we're going to talk about specifically is something called averaging interval or trending interval, depending on which instrument you have, and how that is different than sampling size, and kind of how that works and how that ties into event capture and why that might be important to you. So I drew a diagram. We're going to look at this, and hopefully this will be good for us. So if we look at, this is a 1777, and if we look at this, we go into power logger mode. One thing you're going to do when we get down into session settings, you're going to see right here it says trend interval. I've talked about this before, but you see we've got 1 second, every 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and 30 minutes. And my recommendation is always say how long you plan on going, the duration, and then let the instrument recommend what your trending interval would be. So on the 1770 series, this is going to be called trend interval. On the 1730 series, if we go into logger mode, edit setup, it's going to be called calculate average. So whether you're saying, or whether it's saying trend interval or it's saying calculate average, they are both the same thing. For today's discussion purposes, that's what we're talking about. Okay, so now that we know what we're talking about, now let's talk about what those are. So this averaging interval or this trend interval, what this is saying we're going to look, the instrument is going to look for a period of time. So it's going to look for 1 second or 10 minutes or 15 minutes. But at the end of that 10 minutes, what is it going to give you? It's going to give you your max, your min, and your average. A lot of people think if they pick a 10-minute interval, that means every 10 minutes, it takes a snapshot at the end of the 10 minutes. And that's not what it does at all. So we want to make sure that we understand the instrument is looking continually and measuring voltage and current continually, well, not continually, as fast as the sample rate is, and then it's just logging for the trend interval, or for the trend interval is what we're going to call it moving forward. For the trend interval, it's going to log the average, min, and max for that time period. Okay, and that does not have a direct effect on event capture. So let's look at this fancy chart that I came up with, and we'll kind of go through this. So in this case, I made this chart. It's just made up. Let me turn this off so that's not beeping in our background. And what you're going to see is this is an example of if we had, now it's not a true life example, so this is just made up by me. But in theory, I'm saying for 1 minute of voltage that we're monitoring was 114 volts, exactly 114 volts for that entire minute. And then minute 2, instantaneously it jumped to 112. And then minute 3, it instantaneously jumped to 98, so on and so forth the rest of the way. I know that's not practical, but this is going to be good for demonstration purposes today. So if we were to set a trend, if we were to set like in the 1730 series, or any of them, if we were to set in any of these a trend interval of 1 minute interval, what it's going to tell you is at the end of minute 1, it would have a dot at 114. It would basically just show you this, because remember, it stayed exactly at 114 for an entire minute, and then it jumped to this. But then it would show you minute 2, so it would say min, max, and average for minute 1 was 114. Min, max, average for minute 2, 112. So on and so forth the whole way. If we had a trending interval of 1 minute. If we had a trending interval of 10 minutes, what it would give us is it would look continuously for 10 minutes, and all these things would have been happening every minute. But at the end of the 10 minutes, it would have told us the max interval, the max for this trend interval was 123, and it was at minute 7. It would timestamp it for you. It would tell you the min interval, the min for this interval is 98 volts at minute 3, and it would tell you the average was 112 volts. So you can see you would get more data in the trending, but it may or may not tell you any more if you're looking for dips or swells. So now we're going to take it a step further and say both of those were hooked up with trend interval for 1 minute and trend interval for 10 minutes, but both had a, it was looking for events, okay? And it was looking for events at 10% outside of nominal. So if it was looking for events 10% outside of nominal voltage, and your nominal voltage was 110 volts, then 11 volts above that, I drew a line at 121 volts. Anything above that would be a swell, and anything below that would be a dip. So regardless of whether you had a min, max, and average for minute 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way through 10, or just one min, max, average, you would still see on your event chart something like this. That would say your min, or your dip, was 98 volts, the quantity, and it was time-stamped at minute 3, and it would tell you your swell was at 123 volts, and it was at minute 7. So although we wouldn't get as much detail for every minute as far as the trend plot, we would still not miss any of these things because it would be time-stamped for us in our event chart. Okay? So hopefully that's helpful. Now, sometimes people want to know what is sampling rate, and we're going to look at the sampling rate on all these different models and another chart that I came up with so we can kind of talk through that. I know this is a different video than sometimes, but this is really beneficial if you don't know it already. So event capture. So if you were to have a 1730, 34, or 42, you have no ability to do event capture, so you'll never get a chart like this. That is one of the reasons you jump to one of these other models so that you can get these events in a separate chart that are going to be time-stamped for you. Okay, but the sampling rate, you can see all of these are 10.24 kilohertz. What does that mean? That means we can see events about down to half a cycle, right? But if it's a fast-acting event that's faster than half a cycle, that's when we need to get a faster tool. That's when we need to jump up to the 1770 series. And you can see the 1773, what it can log, what it logs all of its trending data is at 80 kilohertz. And then for those really fast-acting events, the 1775 does it at 1 megahertz and then 20 megahertz. So you can see how, I mean, you're going from 10 to 20,000. So the 1777 can catch extremely fast events. Okay, so hopefully that is helpful. You will notice over here for event capture with the 1730 series, it is fixed at 10% outside of nominal voltage. So whatever your nominal voltage is, that's what you're going to capture events 10% outside of that. So if you were to have two of these things set up with different nominal voltages, you're going to capture different events, right? Because it's all based on that nominal voltage. The other thing is, if you had a really sensitive piece of equipment and you needed really, really tight tolerances for your events, you can't do that with the 1730 series. You have to use 10% outside of nominal. If you jumped up to the 1746 or above, then you can define the percentage off nominal voltage. Meaning, if you said, I want to see anything outside of 5% nominal voltage because I have a really sensitive piece of equipment that I'm going to put in here, like an MRI machine or something, and it can't have hardly any voltage fluctuations, you could put that in there and verify that you're staying within the percentage tolerance of the manufacturer of whatever piece of equipment you're putting in there. I hope this is helpful. I know it's kind of technical and it's going through a lot, but the big thing to know is, and actually let me add one other thing that I think is a good analogy that I've heard before. So when we think of sampling size or sampling rate, that is how fast somebody blinks. So if you're like looking and you close your eyes and somebody moves, and you close your eyes and somebody moves, and you close your eyes and somebody moves, how fast you're blinking is your sample rate. But your demand or your trending interval is just how often you average the data. So again, we're not going to miss it as long as the based on the trending interval that we set, but we could miss it if we have something faster than our sampling rate. So then when we talk about sampling rate, that's when we're talking about really fast acting events and making sure the machine itself can see it, but the trending interval does not affect whether the machine can see it or not. Okay, I hope that was clear. It's the best I came up with. If it wasn't clear, leave comments below. Maybe I'll make another video that can explain it more clearly. Have a great weekend. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you've watched more than 3 videos, don't forget to subscribe. And take care. Give me some questions if you have any.